Story 1. The Man Behind the Couch. When my dad was about 10 years old, he was home alone, sitting in the living room and watching TV. Everything was normal until the TV suddenly clicked off. He turned it back on, only for it to shut off again. This happened several times, and each time, the silence in the house felt heavier. Frustrated, he set the remote on the table. But when the TV went off again, the remote was gone. He leaned over the side of the couch to check, and froze. Behind the couch, crouched low in the shadows, was a man. His messy hair covered part of his pale face, and in his hand was the missing remote. He stared directly at my dad and gave a slow, crooked smile. My dad bolted out the door screaming for help. The neighbors called the police, who pulled the intruder out from behind the couch. Nobody knows how long he had been inside the house, or what he would have done if my dad hadn't found him. Story 2. The Stranger on the Path. A friend of mine was just 8 years old when she came home from school one afternoon. She reached for her keys, but before she could unlock the door, it swung open. Her mother stood there. Relieved, my friend smiled, but her mother didn't smile back. Instead, she looked past her daughter and shouted, "Who are you?" When my friend turned, she saw a man in a long coat sprinting away down the path. He had been following her home. If her mother hadn't arrived early that day, the outcome could have been very different. Story 3. The Finger at the Door. Jacob grew up in a troubled home. One night, his father heard noises, furniture moving, windows rattling, but when he checked, the room was empty. The next morning, Jacob was sitting in the living room when he noticed something strange. The door to the spare room was slightly open, and from the gap, a single unnaturally long finger curled around the frame, gripping the wood tightly. It didn't move. It just stayed there, pressing against the door. Jacob screamed, and his dad rushed them all out of the house. They never returned. Story 4. The Face Beside the Bed. At 13, I slept in a small room separated from the rest of the house. One night, I woke up and noticed a shadow near the end of my bed. Half asleep, I assumed it was my hat hanging on the bedpost. But when I reached for my water bottle, I saw the hat lying on the table. Slowly, I turned back, and there, inches from my face, was the pale face of a man crouched beside my bed, eyes wide, staring directly at me. I screamed and ran to my father. By the time we returned, the window was open and the man was gone. Story 5. The Game in the Woods. As kids, we played manhunt in the woods, a kind of nighttime hide-and-seek. I always used the same hiding spot, an old barrel behind a tree. One night, while crouched there, I heard footsteps. Thinking it was my friends, I whispered their names. But instead of an answer, someone suddenly charged at me through the dark, heavy footsteps pounding the ground. I panicked and ran back home. Later, my parents told me the police had warned about a dangerous man spotted nearby. If I had stayed in that hiding spot a second longer, I might not have made it out. Story 6. The Sigh in the Apartment. On a beach trip, my family rented a small apartment. Everyone else slept in the living room, but I had my own bedroom. I stayed up late playing games, then finally lay down. Only minutes later, I heard it, a long, deep sigh, as if someone exhaled right beside me. The door was shut, the room was empty, and everyone else was asleep in the other room. Terrified, I ran out and refused to sleep alone the rest of the trip. Story 7. The Woman in the House. I was visiting my friend Mike in North Carolina. After a party, I went to use the bathroom and noticed an eye staring through the door's crack. I thought it was Mike, but he was in the kitchen downstairs. That night, in the guest room, I woke to freezing fingers brushing against my feet and a whisper, "Can you help me?" I screamed. Police later found a middle-aged woman hiding in the closet. She had been living in the house, silently watching us. Story 8. The Footsteps in the Snow. At a cabin in Tahoe during a blizzard, we were startled by loud knocks on the front door in the middle of the night. When we checked outside, fresh footprints led toward the cabin, and then just stopped, disappearing in the snow. No vehicle, no trail leading away. We went back inside, but the knocking continued, louder this time. Yet every time we opened the door, nobody was there. Story 9. The Holiday House Intruder. Two friends rented a holiday house in a quiet town. Coming back from a party, they noticed the gate was open, though they remembered locking it. Later that night, they heard footsteps outside and the sound of the back door being forced. Panicked, they grabbed their things and ran for the car. As they drove off, they saw someone sprint from the side of the house toward them. They didn't look back, and they never returned to that house again. Story 10. The Basement Screams. When I was 10, my family had to sleep in the basement for a weekend while our bedrooms were being painted. My baby brother's crib was next to mine. In the middle of the night, he woke up screaming, not crying, but shrieking in terror. His tiny hand pointed straight toward the boiler room. I looked, and in the darkness, I heard a loud crash, followed by the faint sound of breathing. Something was in there, watching us. I grabbed my brother and ran upstairs. After that night, none of us ever slept in that basement again.